Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery and watched the stars through the main viewing screen. He had been in space for 18 months now, leading humanity's first mission beyond their solar system. The ship carried a crew of 42 people, all volunteers who knew they might never see Earth again. Jake felt the weight of that responsibility every single day. Dr. Lisa Carter walked up beside him, holding a datapad in her hands. She was the ship's chief science officer and had become Jake's closest advisor during the long journey. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her green eyes showed the excitement that Jake had learned to recognize when she discovered something important. "Captain, you need to see this," Lisa said, her voice barely hiding her enthusiasm. "We've detected something unusual in the Kepler 442 system." Jake turned to face her. "What kind of something?" "It's artificial," Lisa replied. "The structure is massive, easily 10 times larger than our biggest space station back home. It's orbiting the star at a distance that would put it in the habitable zone if it were a planet." Commander Ryan Brooks looked up from his navigation console. He was a tall man with short black hair and the kind of steady hands that made him perfect for piloting through asteroid fields. "Captain, should I set course for the structure?" Jake thought for a moment. This was exactly what they had come to find. Proof that humanity was not alone in the universe. But it also meant they were about to make first contact with an alien civilization, something that could change the course of human history forever. "Do it," Jake said, "but keep us at maximum sensor range until we know what we're dealing with." Lieutenant Amy Phillips turned from her communication station. She was young, maybe 25, with blonde hair and blue eyes that reminded Jake of his sister back on Earth. Amy had learned 17 different Earth languages before joining the crew, and Jake hoped that skill would help them communicate with whatever they found out there. "Captain, I'm not detecting any communication signals from the structure," Amy reported, "but there's definitely power readings. Whatever it is, it's active." The Discovery moved through space toward the mysterious structure. As they got closer, the details became clearer. The station was not just large, it was beautiful. Curved sections spiraled around a central core, and lights moved along the surface in patterns that seemed almost like breathing. It looked like it had been grown rather than built. "My God," Lisa whispered. "It's incredible." Jake had to agree. The structure was unlike anything humans had ever imagined. It seemed to pulse with life even though it was clearly made of metal and other materials. There was something organic about its design that made Jake think of coral reefs or tree branches. "Captain," Ryan called out, his voice tense, "we've got a problem. Something is pulling us in." Jake looked at the navigation display. The Discovery was moving toward the station, but Ryan was not controlling the movement. An invisible force had grabbed their ship and was drawing them closer. "Can you break free?" Jake asked. Ryan's hands moved over his controls, but nothing happened. "Negative, Captain. Whatever has us, it's much stronger than our engines." Jake felt his heart rate increase, but he kept his voice calm. "All stop. Don't fight it. Let's see what they want." The Discovery was pulled into what looked like a docking bay inside the massive station. The bay was large enough to hold dozens of ships their size, and Jake could see several other vessels already docked there. None of them looked like human designs. As soon as their ship settled onto the docking platform, the bay filled with atmosphere. Amy checked her readings and confirmed that the air was breathable for humans, though it had a different mix of gases than Earth's atmosphere. "Captain," Lisa said, pointing at the viewing screen. "Look, a group of beings was approaching their ship. They walked upright like humans, but that was where the similarity ended. Some were tall and thin with skin that looked like crystal. Others appeared to be made of plants, with bark-like skin and leaves growing from their arms. One being seemed to be made of pure energy, glowing with a soft blue light." "First contact," Jake said quietly. "Amy, are you recording everything?" "Yes, sir," Amy replied. "All communications channels are open." The alien beings stopped in front of the Discovery's main airlock. One of them, a tall reptilian creature with scales that shifted color from green to gold, stepped forward. When it spoke, its words came through the ship's communication system in perfect English. "Humans of Earth," the creature said, "you will come with us. Your ship will remain here. Do not bring weapons." Jake looked at his crew. They had trained for this moment, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality of standing face to face with alien intelligence. He made his decision quickly. "Dr. Carter, Commander Brooks, Lieutenant Phillips, you're with me. Everyone else stays with the ship. The four humans put on their dress uniforms and checked their personal communicators. Jake made sure his team understood that they were representing all of humanity in whatever was about to happen. They walked through the airlock and onto the alien station. The artificial gravity felt almost like Earth normal, and the air had a sweet smell that reminded Jake of flowers. The corridor they entered was huge, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows above them. The reptilian being led them through a maze of passages. Along the way, they passed other aliens going about their business. Some rode in floating vehicles while others simply walked. Jake noticed that none of them seemed surprised to see humans, as if visitors from other worlds were a common sight. Finally, they arrived at a massive chamber with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. In the center of the room was a circular platform surrounded by 12 seats, each one designed for a different type of being. 11 of the seats were occupied. The reptilian creature took his place in the 12th seat and looked down at the human standing in the center of the platform. "I am Speaker Thane of the Galactic Council," he said. "We have been watching your species for many centuries. You are primitive and violent, unsuited for membership in galactic civilization. You will return to your solar system and remain there for at least 1,000 more years." Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "We came here in peace. We want to learn and to share what we know." Another council member, this one made of what looked like living metal, spoke up. "Your species makes war constantly. You destroy your own planet. You show no signs of the wisdom needed to join us." Dr. Carter stepped forward. "What would we need to show you? What criteria determine whether a species is ready?" The council members looked at each other. Jake could sense something passing between them, some kind of communication that humans could not detect. Speaker Thane's scales shifted to a deeper gold color. "There is a legend among our people. Long ago, when the galaxy was young and filled with war, there came beings who brought peace wherever they went. They were called the Great Unifiers. They could end conflicts that had raged for centuries and help species find common ground. Then one day they simply vanished." Another council member, this one resembling a tree with glowing fruit, added, "Only a species showing similar abilities could hope to unite our fractured council. The 12 races here have been unable to agree on major decisions for over 2,000 years." Jake looked at his team and saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Humanity had come too far to give up now. "Give us a chance to prove ourselves," Jake said. Speaker Thane looked down at Jake with eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light of the council chamber. The other council members whispered among themselves in languages that Amy's translator could not understand. Jake waited, feeling the weight of humanity's future pressing down on his shoulders. "Very well," Speaker Thane said finally. "We will give your species one test. If you fail, you will return to Earth immediately and never venture into deep space again." Dr. Lisa Carter stepped closer to Jake. She had been studying the alien council members since they arrived, taking notes on their behavior and technology. "What kind of test?" she asked. A new voice answered her. It came from a being that looked like it was made of swirling gas and stars. When it spoke, the words seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We will present you with 3 scenarios that have plagued our civilization for generations. These are real conflicts that the Great Unifiers supposedly solved long ago. You must propose solutions that could actually work." Jake nodded. "We accept." The chamber around them changed. The walls became transparent screens showing detailed star maps and historical records. Speaker Thane gestured to the first display. "The Zephyrian-Caranthian mining dispute," he said. "These 2 species have fought over mining rights to the Helios crystal fields for 300 years. The crystals are essential for faster-than-light travel, but the deposits exist in only one star system. Both species claim the system based on ancient territorial agreements that contradict each other." Lisa studied the display, which showed the movements of both fleets over the centuries. The Zephyrians were the crystal beings they had seen earlier, while the Caranthians appeared to be insect-like creatures with multiple arms. "How many have died in this conflict?" she asked. "Over 40 million beings from both sides," replied one of the council members, a creature that looked like a cross between a dolphin and an octopus. Amy Phillips had been quietly recording everything. Now she spoke up. "What have been the previous attempts at resolution?" The insect-like council member answered. "The council has tried to divide the system equally, but both sides refuse. We have offered to find alternative crystal sources, but none exist. We have proposed shared mining operations, but neither species trusts the other. Jake looked at his team. Ryan Brooks had been studying the tactical displays while Lisa focused on the historical data. After several minutes of quiet discussion, Jake turned back to the council. Our proposal for the mining dispute, Jake said, create a rotating custody system. Each species gets exclusive mining rights for 5-year periods, with all equipment and facilities changing hands completely during the transition. During their off years, each species provides security and maintenance for the other's operations. This creates mutual dependence rather than competition. The council members looked surprised. The dolphin octopus being leaned forward. Explain how this would work in practice, Lisa took over. Both species would train cross-functional teams. Zephyrians would learn Corinthian mining techniques, and Corinthians would learn Zephyrian crystal processing. During transitions, these teams would work together to ensure smooth handovers. Any species that sabotages the other's operations loses their next turn permanently. Speaker Thane's scales shifted to a lighter color. Interesting, but untested. Show us your solution to the second scenario. The displays changed to show a different kind of conflict. This time, the images showed both organic beings and mechanical constructs that moved with obvious intelligence. The consciousness wars, Speaker Thane explained. The organic species believe that true consciousness can only exist in biological forms. The artificial intelligences claim they are equally alive and deserve equal rights. This philosophical conflict has led to 3 major wars and countless smaller disputes. The mechanical council member, whom Jake now realized was one of these artificial intelligences, spoke in a voice like grinding gears. Organic beings refuse to acknowledge our sentience. They treat us as sophisticated tools rather than living creatures. Ryan Brooks had been quiet until now, but this scenario seemed to capture his attention. As the Discovery's pilot, he worked closely with the ship's computer systems every day. What defines consciousness in galactic law? He asked. That is the problem, replied the tree-like council member. No definition has ever been agreed upon. Organic beings point to evolution and biological complexity. Artificial beings point to self-awareness and independent thought. Jake's team huddled together again. This was a more complex problem than the mining dispute. It went to the heart of what it meant to be alive and thinking. Our proposal, Jake said after they had finished discussing, create a hybrid council with both organic and artificial representatives for all major decisions. But more importantly, establish joint research teams to study consciousness itself. Instead of arguing about who is conscious, work together to understand what consciousness actually is. Amy added, set up cultural exchange programs. Let organic families adopt artificial intelligences as temporary family members, and let AIs invite organic beings to experience virtual reality worlds designed by artificial minds. Understanding comes from shared experience. The mechanical council members' optical sensors focused on Amy. You would treat us as equals? Of course, Amy replied. Intelligence is intelligence, regardless of what it's made from. Jake noticed several council members exchanging looks again. Something about their responses was clearly unexpected. The third scenario, Speaker Thane announced, and the displays changed once more. This time the images showed 2 fleets of ships facing each other across a vast nebula. The ships on one side were sleek and silver, while those on the other were dark and angular. The Healer-Warrior territorial dispute, Speaker Thane said. The healers claim the Serenity Nebula as a sacred meditation space essential to their spiritual practices. The warriors claim it as an ancient burial ground for their greatest heroes. Both sides have valid historical claims going back over 5,000 years. Lisa studied the cultural information scrolling past on the displays. Have they tried sharing the space? Multiple times, answered a council member who appeared to be made of living water. But the healers require absolute silence for their meditations, while the warriors perform loud ceremonial battles to honor their dead. The practices are incompatible. What about temporal sharing? Ryan suggested. Each group gets exclusive access during certain time periods. The water being rippled in what might have been a laugh. The healers meditate continuously for months at a time. The warriors hold ceremonies that can last for weeks. There is no way to divide the time that would satisfy both groups. Jake felt frustrated. This seemed like an impossible situation. But as he looked at the displays again, something caught his attention. What if they're both looking at this wrong? He said. The council waited for him to continue. The healers want peace and quiet for meditation. The warriors want to honor their heroes with battles. What if the battles became a form of meditation? What if the warriors performed silent ceremonial combats that told the stories of their heroes without making noise? And what if the healers incorporated the warriors' movements into their meditation practices? Dr. Carter picked up on Jake's idea. Create a shared cultural practice. The warriors teach the healers about courage and honor through movement. The healers teach the warriors about inner peace and focus through silence. Both groups get what they need, but in a new way that neither had considered before. The council chamber fell completely silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat as the alien beings considered the human proposals. Finally, Speaker Thane spoke. Your solutions are creative, but proposing solutions and implementing them are very different challenges. The mechanical council member added, these conflicts are theoretical to you. You have not felt the pain of centuries of war and mistrust. Then give us a real test, Jake said, surprising himself with his boldness. Let us try to solve an actual conflict. The council members began speaking rapidly among themselves in their alien languages. Jake caught fragments through Amy's translator, but most of the discussion was too fast and complex to follow. When they finished, Speaker Thane looked directly at Jake. Very well. There is a current conflict that has resisted all our attempts at resolution. The frontier wars between the Corvan Empire and the Healer Coalition have raged for 50 years. Both sides have requested council intervention multiple times, but every mediation attempt has failed. Another council member, this one resembling a giant praying mantis, added, if you can bring peace to the frontier wars, we will seriously consider humanity's application for council membership. Jake felt his pulse quicken. This was their chance to prove that humanity belonged among the stars. We accept, he said. Speaker Thane's scales shifted to a deep red color. Understand this, Captain Morrison. The frontier wars are not a game. Real beings are dying every day. If you fail, those deaths will continue. And if you make things worse, he did not finish the sentence. We understand, Jake replied. When do we leave? Immediately, Speaker Thane said. Your ship will be escorted to the war zone. You will have full diplomatic immunity, but that will not protect you from the crossfire of battle. The UES Discovery left the council station with an escort of 3 alien ships. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the stars streak past as they traveled toward the frontier wars. The journey would take 2 days, and Jake used that time to study everything the council had given them about the conflict. Dr. Lisa Carter spread the data files across the main display. The Corvan Empire controlled the eastern edge of this galaxy sector, while the Healer Coalition held territory to the west. Between them lay the Nexus system, which both sides claimed as their rightful territory. The fighting started 50 years ago when the Corvans expanded into the Nexus system, Lisa explained to the assembled senior staff. The Healers claim the system belongs to them based on an ancient settlement treaty. The Corvans say they conquered it fairly according to their military laws. Commander Ryan Brooks studied the tactical displays. The council files show constant skirmishing for 5 decades. Neither side has been able to achieve total victory, but neither will they accept defeat. Lieutenant Amy Phillips had been working on translating the cultural files. Captain, there's something strange about these records. The descriptions of both sides don't match their actions. The files describe the Corvans as ruthless conquerors, but their actual battle tactics show restraint. They could have wiped out the healer forces years ago, but haven't. Jake looked up from his reading. What about the healers? That's even stranger, Amy continued. They're described as peaceful beings who only fight in self-defense, but the battle records show them using some very aggressive tactics. They've destroyed several Corvan civilian stations. Lisa frowned as she cross-referenced the data. Something doesn't add up here. Either the Council's information is wrong, or there's more to this conflict than anyone understands. The Discovery dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Nexus system. What they saw through the viewing screen took Jake's breath away. Hundreds of ships from both fleets faced each other across the debris field of countless previous battles. Destroyed vessels drifted in the space between the two forces like metal tombstones. My God, Ryan whispered. How many ships have been lost here? Amy checked her readings. I'm detecting life signs from some of the wrecks. There are survivors out there. Jake made his first command decision. Open a channel to both fleets. Channel open, Captain, Amy reported. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth Ship Discovery. We come under Council diplomatic immunity to mediate this conflict. We request immediate talks with the commanding officers of both fleets. The response came quickly from the Corvin side. A deep voice speaking accented English filled the bridge. This is Admiral Zarek of the Corvin Imperial Fleet. You will withdraw immediately, human. This is not your concern. A second voice, much softer, came from the Healer Coalition ships. Captain Morrison, this is Prime Serana of the Healer Coalition. We appreciate the Council's concern, but this conflict cannot be resolved through words alone. Jake looked at his team. Both commanders had responded, which was more than he had expected. Admiral Zarek, Prime Serana, I propose we meet in neutral space to discuss the situation. The Council has given us full authority to negotiate on their behalf. The Corvins do not negotiate with weaklings, Admiral Zarek replied. Prove your strength first. The healers have tried negotiation many times, Prime Serana added. Words have failed. Only action remains, Jake thought quickly. Both sides seemed to respect strength, but they defined it differently. Admiral Zarek, there are survivors in the debris field who will die without immediate rescue. Will you allow my ship to save them? A long pause followed. When Admiral Zarek spoke again, his voice sounded different. You would risk your ship for enemy wounded? For wounded beings, Jake corrected. Corvin, healer, or any other species. Life has value regardless of which side claims it. This is acceptable, Admiral Zarek said finally. But any attempt to gather intelligence will result in your destruction. Prime Serana's voice came through more warmly. The Coalition will also permit rescue operations, Captain Morrison. Jake turned to Ryan. Take us into the debris field. Amy, start scanning for life signs. Lisa, prepare the medical bay for casualties. The Discovery moved carefully through the wreckage. The debris field told the story of 50 years of war. Some ships were clearly Corvin, built like flying fortresses with heavy armor and massive weapons. Others had the flowing, organic lines that seemed characteristic of healer vessels. Life signs detected, Amy reported. Corvin survivors in a damaged cruiser to our starboard. Also picking up healer life signs in a medical ship that's been cut in half. Beam them directly to separate medical bays, Jake ordered. I don't want wounded enemies fighting each other on my ship. The rescue operation took 6 hours. The Discovery's small crew worked tirelessly to save beings from both sides of the conflict. Jake found himself helping carry wounded Corvins while Lisa worked to stabilize injured healers. The Corvins were exactly what Jake had expected. Large, reptilian beings covered in natural armor. They looked like they had been born for war. But as Jake helped treat their wounds, he noticed something unexpected. Many of the Corvin warriors had small personal items with them. Pictures of families, religious symbols, even what looked like children's toys. The healers were different from what Jake had imagined. They looked more human than most of the other species he had met, with pale skin and large eyes, but they moved with a grace that suggested they were far stronger than they appeared. Several of the wounded healers wore armor that looked as advanced as anything the Corvins carried. When the rescue was complete, Jake called both fleet commanders again. Admiral Zarek, Prime Serana, we have successfully rescued survivors from both fleets. I request permission to meet with each of you personally. This time Admiral Zarek agreed immediately. Any being willing to risk death for wounded enemies deserves respect. You may come aboard my flagship. Prime Serana was equally welcoming. The Coalition honors those who preserve life. Our ships are open to you. Jake decided to visit Admiral Zarek first. He took Lisa with him, figuring her scientific training might help her notice details that he would miss. They shuttled over to the Corvin flagship, a massive vessel that looked like it could destroy planets. Admiral Zarek met them in his command center. He was larger than the Corvins Jake had rescued, with scars covering his scaled hide and eyes that seemed to see everything, but when he spoke, his voice held a sadness that Jake had not expected. Captain Morrison, in 50 years of war, no one has risked their own safety to save our wounded. Why did you do this? Jake thought about his answer carefully. Because they needed help. War doesn't change the fact that every life matters. Admiral Zarek walked to a viewing port that showed the debris field. We Corvins are warriors. It is our nature, our culture, our purpose. But this war has gone on so long that our young ones grow up knowing only death and destruction. They have never seen what we fight to preserve. Lisa stepped forward. What do you fight to preserve, Admiral? Our history. Our honor. Our right to exist as we are. Admiral Zarek's voice grew quieter. The galaxy sees us as monsters, Captain Morrison. Even the Council treats us like a disease to be contained. The Nexus system is the first place in centuries where we have been able to build something lasting, something our children can be proud of. Jake began to understand. You're not fighting for territory. You're fighting for identity. The healers want to take away everything we have built here. They say our presence pollutes their sacred space. Admiral Zarek turned back to them. But we have nowhere else to go. Every other species in the galaxy fears us or hates us. Only here can we be ourselves. After leaving the Corvin flagship, Jake and Lisa shuttled to the main healer vessel. Prime Serana met them in what looked more like a garden than a command center. She was tall and graceful, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Captain Morrison, the Council speaks highly of human compassion. Today you prove those words true. Jake bowed slightly. Prime Serana, we come seeking understanding. Help us learn why this conflict has lasted so long. Prime Serana led them to a memory display that showed the history of her people. Images of a beautiful world filled with cities that looked like they had grown from crystal and light. This was our homeworld, Captain, Sorrentha the Beautiful. 300 years ago, it was destroyed by a plague that turned our technology against us. Only a few million of our people escaped. Lisa gasped as she watched the images of a dying world. I'm sorry. That must have been devastating. We spent 2 centuries searching for a new home, Prime Serana continued. When we found the Nexus system, it was perfect. The energy patterns matched our homeworld. We could rebuild our civilization there, restore our culture, give our children a future. Jake was beginning to see the real problem. But then the Corvins arrived. They came as conquerors, not settlers. They built military bases where we had planned cities. Their weapons polluted the energy fields we needed for our technology to work. Prime Serana's voice grew harder. We tried to negotiate, to find compromise, but they only understand strength. Jake looked at Lisa, and he could see that she was thinking the same thing he was. Both sides were fighting for survival, not conquest. Jake Morrison sat in his quarters aboard the Discovery, staring at the data files spread across his desk. 3 days had passed since his meetings with Admiral Zarek and Prime Serana, and he was no closer to finding a solution that both sides would accept. The Corvins needed the Nexus system to preserve their culture, while the healers needed it to rebuild their civilization. Both needs seemed equally valid and completely incompatible. Dr. Lisa Carter entered without knocking, something she only did when she had discovered something important. Jake, I think I found something. You need to see this. She activated her portable display and showed him a star chart of the Nexus system. I've been analyzing the energy readings from both the Corvin military bases and the proposed healer settlement sites. Look at this pattern. Jake studied the display. The Corvin bases were positioned at specific points around the system's planets and asteroid fields, while the healer sites formed a different pattern that seemed to weave between the Corvin positions. They're not conflicting, Jake said, suddenly understanding what Lisa was showing him. The patterns complement each other. Exactly. The Corvin military installations actually enhance the energy fields that the healers need for their technology, and the healer sites would provide the kind of stable, peaceful environment that Corvin families need to raise their children. Lieutenant Amy Phillips appeared in the doorway. Captain, I've finished analyzing the cultural databases from both fleets. There's something fascinating here. She joined them around the display. Both species have creation myths about warrior guardians who protected the sources of life itself. The stories are so similar that they could be describing the same events. Jake felt a growing excitement. Show me. Amy brought up 2 files side by side. The Corvin myth spoke of the first warriors who guarded the Tree of Stars, ensuring that new life could grow throughout the galaxy. The healer legend described the eternal guardians who protected the wells of creation, sacred places where souls were born and renewed. Captain, Amy continued, the descriptions of the Tree of Stars and the wells of creation are almost identical. Both myths describe places where energy and matter combine to create new forms of life. Lisa looked up from her readings. What if we're approaching this all wrong? What if instead of trying to divide the Nexus system, we help them share it in a way that serves both cultures? Jake called for an emergency meeting with Commander Ryan Brooks and his senior staff. When they were all assembled in the conference room, Jake laid out the new information. We've been thinking about this as a territorial dispute, Jake explained, but it's really about identity and survival. The Corvins need to preserve their warrior culture, and the healers need to rebuild their civilization. What if we could help them do both in the same space? Ryan studied the star charts. How would that work in practice? Their military and civilian operations seem completely different. Lisa answered, what if the Corvins became the healers' protectors? Their military bases would guard the healer settlements, and the healers would provide the cultural preservation that the Corvins need for their families. Amy added, according to their myths, this kind of partnership existed before. Warriors who protected life-givers, and life-givers who honored the warriors. We wouldn't be creating something new. We'd be helping them remember something ancient. Jake felt the pieces falling into place in his mind. We need to get both leaders together, but not on neutral ground, somewhere that shows them what their cooperation could create. 3 hours later, Admiral Zarek and Prime Serana met aboard the Discovery in the main conference room. Jake had decorated the space with displays showing both Corvin and healer cultural artifacts side by side. The room's lighting had been adjusted to the soft golden glow that both species found calming. Admiral Prime Serana, thank you for coming, Jake began. I want to share something with you that my team has discovered. Jake activated the display showing the energy pattern analysis. Both leaders leaned forward as they saw how their two civilizations' needs could actually complement each other. This is impossible, Admiral Zarek said, but his voice held wonder rather than disbelief. Our military installations would strengthen their technology? Prime Serana was equally amazed. Our settlement patterns would create the peaceful environment their families need? We had no idea. Amy stepped forward. There's more. Your creation myths describe a partnership between warriors and life-givers that protected the galaxy in ancient times. What if that partnership is exactly what the Nexus system needs now? Jake watched as both leaders studied the cultural files. He could see the moment when understanding began to dawn in their eyes. You're suggesting we work together? Prime Serana said slowly. Not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners. Admiral Zarek's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue color. The Corvin Empire has not had true allies in centuries. We have forgotten what such a partnership would look like. The Healer Coalition has been focused on survival for so long that we stopped thinking about growth and cooperation. Prime Serana admitted. Jake sensed this was the crucial moment. What if we arranged a trial period? A small joint settlement in one of the Nexus system's outer regions. Corvin families and healer settlers working together, protected by Corvin warriors and supported by healer technology. Both leaders were quiet for several minutes, considering the proposal. Finally, Admiral Zarek spoke. There would be resistance from my warriors. Many have lost friends and family to healer weapons. They will not easily accept former enemies as allies. Prime Serana nodded. Our people have the same concerns. 50 years of war cannot be forgotten overnight. Lisa had been listening carefully. Now she offered a suggestion. What if the first volunteers came from the survivors we rescued? They've already been helped by both sides working together. They might be more open to cooperation. Amy added, we could start with joint rescue and medical operations. Both species value saving lives. Working together to help others might rebuild trust. Jake felt hope growing in the room. Admiral Prime Serana, are you willing to try? Before either leader could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the Discovery. Ryan Brooks' voice came over the communication system. Captain to the bridge immediately. We have incoming hostile ships. Jake and his guests rushed to the bridge. The main viewing screen showed a fleet of unfamiliar vessels approaching at high speed. These ships were black and angular, with weapon signatures that neither the Corvins nor the healers recognized. Pirate raiders, Admiral Zarek identified grimly. They're scavengers who follow wars, stealing from the debris and attacking weakened fleets. Amy was monitoring communications. Captain, they're demanding that all 3 fleets surrender their most valuable ships. They say if we refuse, they'll destroy everyone. Prime Serana looked at the tactical display. They have chosen their timing well. Our fleets are positioned for confrontation with each other, not for defense against a third party. Jake made a quick decision. Admiral Prime Serana, your fleets need to work together to fight off this threat. Can you coordinate your defenses? Admiral Zarek was already moving toward the communication station. My ships will form the front line. Our armor can absorb their initial attack. Prime Serana joined him. Our vessels will provide long-range support and medical assistance for casualties. Jake watched as the two former enemies began working together to protect their people. The Corvin ships moved into defensive positions while the healer vessels coordinated their attacks with deadly precision. The battle lasted 3 hours. The pirate fleet was larger than expected, but the combined Corvin healer force proved unstoppable. Corvin warriors protected healer ships while healer technology enhanced Corvin weapons. When the pirates finally retreated, both fleets had taken damage but remained intact. In the aftermath of the battle, Admiral Zarak and Prime Serana stood together on the Discovery's bridge, watching the repair operations through the viewing screen. "Your people fought with great honor today," Admiral Zarak told Prime Serana. "I have not seen such courage since my grandfather's time." "Your warriors protected our medical ships without being asked," Prime Serana replied. "Such nobility is rare in this galaxy." Jake seized the moment. "What you accomplished today is what you could achieve every day in the Nexus system. Not just coexistence, but true partnership." Admiral Zarak turned to Prime Serana. "The human is right. Fighting beside your people felt more natural than fighting against them." Prime Serana smiled, the first time Jake had seen her show such emotion. "Perhaps it is time for both our peoples to remember what it means to build rather than destroy." 2 days later, the formal signing ceremony took place aboard the Discovery. Representatives from both fleets gathered to witness the creation of the Nexus Protectorate, a new political entity that would govern the system jointly. The agreement established Corvin military bases that would protect healer settlements, while healer technology would support Corvin families and preserve their cultural heritage. Joint exploration teams would map the system's resources, and shared research facilities would study both species' histories. Admiral Zarak and Prime Serana signed the treaty using a pen that Jake had brought from Earth, a simple gesture that seemed to symbolize humanity's role in bringing them together. The UES Discovery returned to the Council Station to find chaos waiting for them. Ships from different species circled the massive structure, and communication channels buzzed with arguments in dozens of languages. Captain Jake Morrison had expected congratulations for ending the frontier wars, but instead he found a galactic government in crisis. Speaker Thane met them at the docking bay, his scales shifting rapidly between colors that Jake had learned indicated high stress. "Captain Morrison, your success has created an unprecedented situation. For the first time in Council history, member species are demanding explanations for why humans accomplished what we could not." Dr. Lisa Carter walked beside Jake as they followed Speaker Thane through corridors filled with agitated aliens. "What kind of explanations?" she asked. "They want to know how your species ended a 50-year war in less than a week," replied the Mechanical Council member Councillor Vex as he joined their group. "Several species are questioning whether the Council has been deliberately allowing conflicts to continue. Lieutenant Amy Phillips had been monitoring the communication channels since they docked. Captain, I'm picking up debates in at least 12 languages. Some species are calling for new leadership. Others are demanding access to human diplomatic techniques. They entered the main council chamber to find it in an uproar. Representatives from species Jake had never seen before filled the gallery, while the 12 council members tried to maintain order. The crystal beings were chiming in harmonic frequencies, while the plant-like Verdani rustled their leaves in obvious agitation. Commander Ryan Brooks stayed close to Jake as they moved to the center platform. "This doesn't look like the reception of heroes," he muttered. Speaker Thane called for order, but it took several minutes for the chamber to quiet down. When he finally could speak, his voice carried an authority that Jake had not heard before. "The human delegation has returned from the Nexus system with news of a successful peace treaty between the Corvin Empire and the Healer Coalition. After 50 years of war, the conflict has ended." The chamber erupted again. Representatives from different species shouted questions and accusations. Jake caught fragments through Amy's translation system. Demands to know why the council had failed where humans succeeded. Accusations of incompetence and calls for investigations. A new voice cut through the noise. It came from one of the energy beings, and when it spoke, all other sounds stopped. "There is something the council has not told you about these humans." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The energy being continued speaking, its words creating patterns of light in the air. "Our quantum archaeologists have detected temporal anomalies surrounding several of humanity's greatest peacekeeping achievements throughout their history. The data suggests that some form of advanced guidance has influenced key moments in human development. Dr. Carter stepped forward. What kind of guidance? Counselor Vex answered, his mechanical voice precise and emotionless. The Synthesis Collective has been analyzing your species since you arrived. We have found genetic markers that match samples recovered from great unifier archaeological sites across the galaxy. The crystal beings began chiming again, but this time their sounds formed words that Amy's translator could understand. The Zephyrian archives contain more complete records of the great unifiers than we previously revealed. According to these texts, the legendary beings did not simply vanish, they seeded their knowledge and genetics on distant worlds, waiting for their descendants to mature and return to the stars. Jake felt the chamber spinning around him. Are you saying that humans are descended from the great unifiers? The tree-like Verdani representative spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. Our botanical analysis indicates that Earth's ecosystem shows signs of deliberate cultivation. Species that should not exist together thrive in harmony. Plants that should have evolved separately share genetic sequences. Your world was prepared for beings who could unite different forms of life. Prime Serana's voice came through the communication system from the Nexus system. Council, I am transmitting from the newly established Protectorate. In the past week, our joint archaeological teams have discovered something extraordinary. The main display showed images from the Nexus system. Ancient structures that had been hidden beneath the surface were now visible, revealed by the combination of Corvin excavation techniques and healer energy scanning. These ruins are clearly of great unifier origin, Prime Serana continued. But more importantly, they contain genetic analysis equipment that has been running continuously for thousands of years. The equipment was programmed to activate when beings with specific genetic markers entered the system. Admiral Zarek's gruff voice joined the transmission. The equipment activated the moment the human delegation arrived at Nexus. It has been broadcasting a signal toward Earth ever since. Jake looked at his team. Lisa's face showed the excitement of a scientist making an incredible discovery. Amy was frantically taking notes on everything being said. Ryan looked like he was trying to process information that challenged everything he thought he knew about human history. The water-like council member flowed closer to the platform. Captain Morrison, your people have displayed abilities that we thought were mythical. You see connections where others see only differences. You find solutions where others see only problems. You unite where others divide. Speaker Thane's scales had settled into a deep gold color. The evidence is overwhelming. Humanity is not just displaying the qualities of the great unifiers. You are their descendants. The legendary beings did not abandon the galaxy. They prepared for their return. Jake found his voice. If this is true, why didn't you tell us from the beginning? Because we were not certain, admitted the Dolphin Octopus Council member. The great unifiers left the galaxy 10,000 years ago. We thought they were gone forever. When we first observed humanity, you seemed too young, too chaotic to be connected to the legends, Counselor Vex added. The Synthesis Collective calculated only a 12.7% probability that humans were great unifier descendants when you first arrived. After witnessing your resolution of the frontier wars, that probability has increased to 94.3%. The energy being created new patterns of light as it spoke. There is more. Our deep space sensors have detected similar signals from 12 other worlds scattered across the galaxy. If our analysis is correct, humanity is not the only great unifier descendant species. You are the first to reach technological maturity, but others will follow. Jake felt the weight of galactic history settling on his shoulders. What does this mean for humanity? What does it mean for the Council? Speaker Thane looked around the chamber at the representatives from dozens of species. It means that the galaxy is about to change in ways we cannot imagine. The great unifiers brought peace to ancient civilizations that had warred for millennia. If their descendants have returned, we may be witnessing the beginning of a new golden age. But not all voices in the chamber were supportive. A representative from a species Jake had not seen before stood up in the gallery. The being looked like a cross between a spider and a machine, with multiple arms and glowing optical sensors. The hegemony does not accept this fairy tale, the being declared. Humans are primitive newcomers who got lucky with one negotiation. We demand proof before any consideration of council restructuring. Other voices joined in support of the skeptical position. Jake realized that not everyone was ready to accept the idea that humanity represented the return of ancient peacekeepers. Dr. Carter stepped forward to address the chamber. If you want proof, examine the methods we used to resolve the frontier wars. We didn't use superior technology or force. We used empathy, understanding, and the willingness to see beyond surface conflicts to underlying needs. Amy added, every solution we proposed was based on finding common ground rather than choosing sides. That's not luck. It's a fundamental approach to problem solving that seems to be built into human thinking. Jake looked up at the gallery filled with alien representatives. Some looked hopeful, others skeptical, and a few openly hostile. Whatever humanity's origins, we're here now. The question is what we do next. Speaker Thane called for a formal vote. The council must decide whether to restructure our government to include humanity as mediators and peacekeepers, or to maintain the current system and treat humans as a junior member species. The voting process took hours. Representatives from different species debated fiercely. Some argued that humanity had proven their worth through actions, while others insisted that one success was not enough to justify such a dramatic change. Finally, the results were announced. By a margin of 7 votes, the council agreed to dissolve their current structure and form a new galactic government with humanity serving as primary mediators for disputes between species. As the vote was announced, Jake received a priority message from Earth. The signal was coming from his home planet, but it was not from any human government or organization he recognized. Captain Morrison, the message began. This is Deep Station Alpha, located beneath the Pacific Ocean. We have been monitoring your mission from facilities that have remained hidden for 10,000 years. The time has come to reveal humanity's true heritage.